When discussing the greatness of LeBron James, a lot of people like to bring up what he accomplished in the 2007 season. There is no debating that his ability to lead his team to their first finals appearance in franchise history was impressive. It is certainly something worthy to bring up when discussing his legacy. However, one thing that I hear a lot of people exaggerate about is when they say that the Cleveland Cavaliers had no business even making it to the finals that season. I simply don't believe there's much merit to make such an egregious statement. And when looking at the context of that season, we can see the other side of that story. The first thing we want to look at is the type of success that the Cavaliers had in the regular season. They finished with a 50-32 season record, which was good enough for the second best record in the Eastern Conference. One thing that they excelled at was defense. They allowed their opponents to 92.9 points per game, which was a fifth best mark in the league. They were also fourth in defensive rating that season. To put that in perspective, the Detroit Pistons, who were famously known at that time for their defense, allowed their opponents to 91.8 points per game, and they were seventh in defensive rating that season. So we're talking about a top 5 defensive team in the league. They were not much help to LeBron in the offensive end, but they held their own defensively. Yes, it's true that the Cavaliers were a team that had little to no talent, but the same thing can be said about 14 of the other 15 teams in the Eastern Conference. This was the starting 5 of the third seed of the East, the Chicago Bulls. Kirk Hinrich, Ben Gordon, Luol Deng, Andres Nocioni, and Ben Wallace. A respectable team, but let's not act like they were a top team to challenge the Pistons. The Toronto Raptors were next in line, and this was their starting 5. Anthony Parker, TJ Ford, Joey Garbajosa, Chris Bosh, and Rasho Nesterovic. Nothing impressive there either. And every other team after that finished with 44 wins or less. So what LeBron had was the same problem that Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Dwight Howard, and Vince Carter was all facing: a lack of help. The fact is that LeBron was just better individually than any other player in the Eastern Conference. And for the 2006-07 season, that was enough to get it done. Now, a counter argument that a lot of people will bring up is how the Pistons were a much more superior team than the Cavaliers. They won a championship in 2004, they were one game away in 2005 and repeating as champions, and they made it to the conference finals in 2006. In fact, the Cavaliers only won one time out of the 4 games against the Pistons in the regular season matchup that season. However, one major difference that weakened the Pistons from the previous years was that they lost Ben Wallace in free agency that offseason. They replaced him with a 33-year-old Chris Webber in a mid-season signing, and they also added Nazir Muhammad. Ian Thompson said this about the difference in the Detroit Pistons in a 2007 Sports Illustrated article. Quote, "As a strict man-to-man team last year, Detroit counted on Ben Wallace to defend the rim and offset its deficiencies elsewhere. Since Wallace's departure to Chicago, however, the Pistons have been refining a variety of zones, traps, and rotations that returned the team to the top 6 in the league defensively." End of quote. So they were able to adjust well in the regular season. However, the Pistons missed the presence of Ben Wallace in the conference finals. Jack McCallum said this in the 2007 Sports Illustrated article after the Cavaliers defeated the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. Quote, "How to explain Game 5 in basketball terms? Certainly Detroit was complicit. Known for their ability to change defenses on the fly, the Pistons seemed confused about what scheme they were playing. Sometimes they had 2 defenders on James and neither stopped him. Sometimes, after he almost inevitably sped by a single perimeter defender, no one picked him up. James came close to being a one-man team. The Cavs had only 1 assist in the game's final 22 minutes and just 13 for the game." End of quote. it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that Ben Wallace could have played a part in containing LeBron James in that infamous Game 5. Another simple stat that we can put to show how much the Pistons missed the presence of Ben Wallace was that the Pistons went from a 64-win team the prior year to 53 wins. The Pistons did, however, still have one of the game's best offensive trios of Chauncey Billups, Richard Hamilton, and Tayshaun Prince. Their bench wasn't exactly deep, but all of the experts were picking the Pistons to come out of the East. They saw the Cavaliers as a one-man show, and they had much more confidence in the title experience of the Pistons. They kept comparing LeBron to what Michael Jordan had to go through early in his career against the bad boy Pistons. They thought he had to go through more failure like Jordan did to overcome the Pistons. They were wrong about LeBron, and they were wrong for even comparing this team to the legendary Pistons team of the 80s. LeBron showed a lot of maturity after he received criticism for passing up the game-winning shot in Game 2, and the Cavaliers did a good job in making Tayshaun Prince a non-factor offensively for this series. He averages 8.7 points per game on 24% shooting. The Pistons made the starters play a lot of minutes in the playoffs because they weren't a deep team, and once Game 6 came around, they ran out of gas. Speaking of Game 6, what happened in that game showed that LeBron's teammates were more than capable of stepping up. After LeBron's performance at Game 5, the Pistons vowed to not let LeBron come out with an encore performance. They were going to dare someone else to come up big. They did a good job in containing LeBron, as he only had 20 points on 3 of 11 shooting. However, the Cavaliers got a huge game from Daniel Gibson. He ended up with 31 points, including a 19-point fourth quarter to blow the game wide open. That was a huge statement and the Cavaliers' biggest franchise victory up to that point. So I wouldn't quite describe LeBron's teammates as bums. Let's not get it confused though. I'm in no way trying to discredit what LeBron James accomplished in that series and especially in that game. Jack McCallum continues saying in his article, quote, "But the only real explanation is that the 6'8", 240-pound James unleashed everything that was already in his arsenal. He can break down defenses off the dribble. If he gets near the basket, he will power dunk on anyone's head. He is a threat in the open floor. He can shoot standstill jumpers from the perimeter in absurd fadeaways that are unblockable. He has a decent mid-range game. Witness his 16-footer from the right wing with a shot clock winding down in the last minute that proved to be the key basket in Game 3. He can post up and take advantage of his superior size at the small forward position, and he can nail jumpers off curls and pin downs. And most of all, he is a willing and able passer, irrefutably in the league of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird." End of quote. There's no question that LeBron James had one of the greatest playoff performances of that decade. One game can impact an entire series, and LeBron did exactly that. Now the Pistons and Cavaliers took care of business in their home floor. Drew Gooden and Daniel Gibson each had as many points as LeBron did in Game 4 that tied the series at 2 apiece. So the rest of his teammates deserve some credit, but LeBron gave a classic playoff performance in that Game 5. Later, what happened in the finals against the San Antonio Spurs showed us that they were in a whole nother league compared to the Cavaliers. It wasn't really close, and the NBA was facing a problem. Bill Simmons said this in the 2007 ESPN article, quote, "Once the league's reckless expansion pushed the numbers of teams past the mid-20s, it became too easy for one conference to be stacked with elite teams. David Stern has argued multiple times that this stuff evens out over time, but clearly that's not true. We've had much better teams in the West for nearly a full decade. In 8 of the past 10 seasons, the best 2 teams played before the finals, and in 4 of those seasons, they played before the conference finals. That's not a major flaw in the system." End of quote. And that's what we saw for the first 7 years of the 2000s decade. And it didn't take long for things to change. In fact, it changed in draft night in 2007 when Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen joined the Boston Celtics. It was clear that the Cleveland Cavaliers were not one of the top teams in the league. The Detroit Pistons were a great team, but they were beatable. LeBron showed us why he is so great, as he's one of the best we've ever seen and gained the most out of the little talent that he is surrounded by. There is no debate about that. But this was simply all about timing. The Cavaliers remained a top team in the East for the next 3 years, but the Celtics were a legit powerhouse that stood in their way until LeBron decided to take his talents to South Beach. But for the year 2007, the Eastern Conference title was up for grabs for anyone. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to like and subscribe to my Basketball Universe channel. Thanks for listening.